things from everyday life, from playing guitars and riding bicycles to dancing in ball gowns. Marigolds were everywhere, and I remembered reading that their color and strong smell are said to help the dead find the altars. A long line of people waiting to enter the museum snaked around the corner and extended for several city blocks, while near the outdoor altars others waited to have their faces painted, often with the pallor of death covering just one side. In their somber black clothes adorned with skeleton motifs, many of them looked like they were on a date with the Grim Reaper. But the whole scene also had a wholesome air about it, as families and friends socialized and chatted with strangers who had questions about their altars. As night fell, I struggled to make sense of the sensory overload. While I'd known a little about this festival before arriving, nothing prepared me for the sheer weirdness of it. This was death people were honoring, satirizing, and embracing. I'd been taught that dying is solemn and sad, best kept confined to funerals and cemeteries and spoken of in hushed voices. But in Pilsen, death was everywhere, though not in its typical depressing form. Instead, the Grim Reaper was having a good time here at the Day of the Dead. I'd come to this festival after a summer of loss. My mother's entry into a nursing home with dementia, followed 4 days later by the sudden death of my 59-year-old brother from a heart attack. I was still trying to recover from other losses as well, including the deaths of several close friends. And I was beginning to realize that this loss thing isn't going to get any easier. I'm of an age when I attend 2 funerals for every wedding. I buy sympathy cards in bulk, and when I stand at the checkout counter, watching as the clerk totals them up, I wonder what names I'll be writing on the envelopes. In the midst of my melancholy, the Day of the Dead was a burst of brilliant color. I'd been drawn here, I realized, because I needed a tutorial in death. I didn't need to know about the stages of grief or how to make a living will. I needed to know how to live with death. This festival blending death, whimsy, and remembrance was a beginning. It made me want to learn more about what it meant to invite the dead to come back and then bid them leave again. I've long been curious about death. In high school, the results of a career interest inventory indicated that I was uniquely suited to being either a teacher or a funeral director. When I ended up being a writer instead, one of my first projects was a collection of ghost stories from my corner of Iowa. A book that taught me that if Iowans do come back as ghosts, they're a lot like they are in life. Friendly, helpful, and low-key, the sort of spirits who are more interested in rearranging furniture than spattering blood on the walls or tripping people at the top of the stairs. Here's another qualification I have for writing a book about death. I'm going to die. I don't want to be rude, but you are too. And I think this fact is worth pondering before we get to the point where we aren't buying green bananas any longer. One of my most important lessons on death came from a comment made by Franciscan priest and author Richard Rohr after a speech. He was asked by an audience member, a man who worked in a hospice, why he thought so many people have such a difficult time coming to terms with their deaths. "Well, you don't want to leave your spiritual homework until the night before the test," Rohr replied. I've had that as a cautionary principle ever since. I don't want to be the student who has to pull an all-nighter before glory beckons, trying to cram in all I should have learned along the way. Every religion tries to help its followers deal with death. It's one of the big questions that few of us can avoid contemplating. We can easily skip over the parts of the exam relating to phenomenology and hermeneutics, but the ones on death are not in the extra credit section. My own religion, Christianity, says that when we die, we're resurrected in Christ. I believe this with all my heart. I don't know how it happens exactly, but I'm on board with all of it. I think